But anyways, yeah, V kind of for the longest time, well, even still now, but I haven't seen him too much bounce around as what he got the affectionate nickname as the Sargon's carrier pigeon to go kind of work out all Sargon's deals behind the scenes and get people on. Um, but yeah, he's basically a lackey, jump on there and stuff here. In my Chud days, I used to watch him because he can, back then he can be funny. He's got a bit of a sense of a humor to him, but yeah, it just comes obnoxious over time as you sit and watch this stuff, and especially as I've moved my positions over the years. So this is his final video on feminism and toxic masculinity. So we get 2-1 for Leslie. So let's jump into it.
I think this is going to be my last video on feminism, unless I find something like extremely funny.
Can I boost
the reason
his
is
audio?
that I firmly believe the movement is pretty much gone now. Like, when's the last time you heard about patriarchy or manspreading or any other things? It did have an impact. Like, people got arrested for manspreading, believe it or not. It was all over the internet. I think the purpose of the movement was to get people okay with internet censorship and getting people fired for.
All right, so let's look this up. I am not familiar with this case at all, so let's see if this is actually real, or if he's getting this from some site here. Okay, let's see what this is. It's from. All right, here's Snow debunking the article. It's from 5 years ago. This was before the big manspreading videos we're talking about. No, quit the ads. I need an ad blocker. And it's just there. At least 2 men were reportedly arrested for manspreading incidents in New York City subway system. May 28th. Where's their conclusion? We go through all of this. Alrighty, so coming down here, they say it's possible that 2 unnamed men were arrested in New York City for manspreading, but no details about the claim were made available in the original report or any of the many later repetitions of it. The scant information suggested that the men were arrested not for manspreading, but for arrest warrants already active at the time they came to the attention of the NYPD. So this is a lie. That is clickbait. But of course, they're not going to look into it. Well, he's V is Romanian, so that's his Romanian accent.
For opinions they had on Twitter, because that's how it all started. Like, believe it or not, 4chan right now, which is like the most edgy website on the internet, is just like Reddit used to be in 2016. The biggest moral panic that we have on the internet right now is Parler, which has the exact same terms of service that the Twitter used to have in 2018. Like, the internet used to be a free place where people could actually have a conversation without a chaperone looming over them, without Cortana, the Google AI, wanting to see if they're going to say anything offensive in that video. But, it was through feminism. It's like, oh, well, women cannot be safe on the internet. We must take action. We must make sure that men do not say edgy jokes, because jokes are normalizing gang rape. I'm not even kidding. Like, that was the argument. Like, someone makes it funny, someone says something humorous, and the next day other people think it's okay to break the law and rape women.
I mean, so this is yeah, he lied. So let's look at this pyramid, right? So problematic language, objectification, traditional roles, class ceiling, rigid gender-based stereotypes, harassment, threats, verbal abuse, physical, emotional, financial abuse, murder, stuff like that. And so this is a comic. I have no idea what would I search to find this comic. And I wonder just how popular it was, but like part of this argument here is that, hey, don't normalize, this shitty behavior, because you normalize these shitty behaviors and attitudes that can happen, further on down the line. It's just like a chain of events, right? So, you're just contributing to the larger discussion. Yeah. But I mean, nobody is saying no edgy jokes and then women can't be on here. A lot of it was harassment, and pretty legitimate harassment and stuff there. Like, the joke goes around, from former anti-SJWs who are now outspoken against like the anti-SJWs, is that, hey, the SJWs were right about the harassment, about all the stuff going on that needed to stop and be taken care of. Now, are these social media websites doing them in the correct way or in a way that's most beneficial? That can be debated. Oftentimes, you get people that aren't doing shitty stuff get caught up in it because, they come across the radar of basically the shitty people who are harass them anyways, and they get reported, they lose their accounts, and do all sorts of stuff. Don't ever piss off the right wingers in that sense, because they'll go around, they'll get you yeeted right away. They have no problem exercising that against you, even when it's not necessarily warranted, and the sites will go along with it. They basically think as well, fair is fair, right? But when you're not doing anything, like turf, for example. Turf is a big one, right? You say turf on Twitter, you'll get a bunch of turfs that'll come and report your tweets, and you get your account locked, suspended, stuff like that, just for saying, accurately describing people who hold this ideology.
I don't understand how this ideology even managed to gain ground the way it did. Well, actually, I do know. It's because everyone that was talking something about it, no matter how ridiculous it was, like air conditioning are sexist, would get a platform on mainstream news. Like, the whole world would get exposed to that. Meanwhile, if you were to say anything against it, then you'd be like suppressed or banned or censored, or so it was artificially made that the most popular voices are in favor of this just ridiculous ideology. This is like the patriarchy, this conspiracy.
Veeh, you came up with Sargon, Shoe on Head. You want to take the atheist content creators jumping over, like anti-feminism, anti-SJW content was a gold mine from about 2000, near the end of 2014, with the rise of Gamergate, till midway 2017 when the algorithm changed. Like, those 3 years, so many channels blew up, made a good chunk of money, and now a lot of them are gone now because the algorithm shifted and their content doesn't get anywhere, right? So like, No Bullshit was bouncing around this week. No Bullshit started in 2017. He was kind of one of the last late hanger-oners, kind of jumping on the grift that managed to blow up. There's others that came out before him that probably petered out at maybe 10,000 subs or something like that, because the algorithm had changed and the demand for this content was different. There's the rise of BreadTube and LeftTube and stuff like that started gaining popularity, and with the algorithm change, that stuff was favored, and the anti-feminism and the anti-SJW stuff disappeared for the most part. But he was one of the last hangers-on to have success, and if you watch his channel, he gets like 8,000 views with over 600,000 subs nowadays, right? People just aren't watching his stuff anymore. Then this week, you laugh at him, he lost monetization. Now he's begging Donald Trump and for help to get his monetization back. Then he went and begged CD Projekt Red to give him a review copy of Cyberpunk, right, to play with. It's so funny. Yeah. I think V likes Tulsi too, which is funny too. I mean, go figure, that's going to be the person who comes out with the turf legislation.
Conspiracy theory, which strongly believes that all of the men are working in unison, they're working together in this shadowy cabal called the patriarchy, which has its firm purpose in subjugating their wives, their daughters, their sisters, their mothers. It's like, you go to a man and you insult him about his mother, you're going to have hands flying. Like, but apparently, when he is in the patriarchy, that's different. All right, it's just when like he's outside of the patriarchy, he behaves. I never.
So the patriarchy isn't a cabal doing it there. The way some pop feminists will talk about it, it sounds very cabal-y, so you get this straw man argument that can push up here, but largely, like, things with like systemic or racism and stuff like that is that the systems are the ones doing it that are put in place that are kind of doing this stuff, and the people within it don't have to be individually, sexist or racist or anything like that for this system to exist and propagate itself, right? Like, we were, not necessarily that the safe harbor law is racist or anything like that, but we're talking the safe harbor deadline was something instituted, back in 1887, right? So before civil rights, near the end of Reconstruction, just beginning of the Jim Crow era, and that's a law that still affects our lives today, even if say it was like a racist law or something like that. It's still in effect. It's still being interpreted in ways that would do that way if we're just gonna make that comparison. Yeah, the election conspiracy stuff is there. Yeah, what's funny enough, he's got a medical degree and he's got a legal degree. I don't know how good they are or where he went in Romania to get those, but yeah. And now he's a full-time YouTuber. So I don't know exactly how good his degree is, but yeah, he's got a legal degree and he's got a medical degree. Which is funny that he can't. Now, granted, it's second language and stuff like that, so he's not going to be able there, but he has no problem making shit up and lying and just kind of piecing his own. Like, where the hell did you get this stuff from?
Never understood. Like, seriously, Romanians can't even compute this ideology. It's so bizarre. Like, you need a long period of time where you slow boil the frog in order to get adepts of this type of rhetoric. But one of the things that they constantly talk about is how to fight toxic masculinity. Now, if you don't know what toxic masculinity is, then look at The Last of Us 2. Pretty much any woman in that video game suffers from toxic masculinity. Captain Marvel suffers from toxic masculinity. It's kind of weird, like, in a way.
What? I haven't played The Last of Us 2, so I can't make any comment on that. But I don't see where Captain Marvel practices any toxic masculinity, right?
It's supposed to be like something bad, but then they also attribute to good things that men have. Like, for example, being courageous is a noble virtue. We're going to watch about that in a bit. But no, that's apparently also a toxic masculinity. It's really weird. It's so weird that they overarched what they considered to be toxic masculinity to the point where they had to create a new word for attractive men, and they created big dick energy. Like, The Guardian wrote articles about it. And it's interesting because literally what they would describe by big dick energy was toxic masculinity. I guess it's like now the yin and yang of toxic masculinity, the good type and the bad type. Very bizarre.
I have no idea what he's going on about. Yeah, that's funny. Yeah, well, he's upset. I'm expecting a Twitter storm this weekend, if not later tonight. But yeah, that's a bunch of nonsense about. I don't even know what he's trying to compare there, or what he thinks big dick energy is, and all that other stuff. Yeah, no, big dick energy's been around for a long time. Like, for Veeh, all this stuff came about in 2014. There's nothing that existed before. None of these things or anything there. But like, the way they would use like big dick energy and stuff like there is someone who's, guys that are afraid to be, sensitive or something like that, or something that's traditionally considered not masculine or something like there, and who's open and fine about it, and somebody comes laugh at, like someone like Veeh would come, point and heckle him for being a sensitive guy, and he's like, yeah, I'm a sensitive guy, so what? And you get like, hey, big dick energy right there. Yeah, it's all disconnected in his head. I literally think I think he does daily uploads, so it's basically, oh, what am I gonna rant about for 20 minutes today?
bizarre. Right. It's kind of sad though, because there are a lot of men out there, especially teenagers, which do need advice. Like they do need to know how to behave in life, and they look to the media, they look to schools, they look through social media, and they find this type of advice, which really isn't helpful. Like, in fact, I bet they're going to depress them more. The only good advice, if you're a guy, in my opinion, like from what I've seen, there aren't even a lot of role models. I mean, who do you look at television and you go like, I want to become like this guy, huh? I know, Dr. Fauci. Dr. Fauci is my role model. But other than that, like, we only have Dr. Fauci. Like, what else do you have besides that for men?
I mean, weird joke. Like, I don't know. I think these real life action figures are kind of cringe, but I mean, they're done of like all sorts of figures, like popular people. Yeah, they ran out of things to talk about and troll about. Like, there's only so much you can say or do. Yeah, I know. He's got like he did not set this up very well. How his video is like, it looks like he's doing this in what's that software that everybody uses for like their panels here on Twitch. Looks like he's in that and he's got one of his videos there and he's just kind of sitting there and he's got the green space around it instead of cutting this out, which I don't think he made any of this. This is fan made, but just have it out, or this is just like the green screen that he could chroma key out and then he can put his whole video under there and line it up right. Oh yeah, definitely.
In Japan, there's a lot of idols for men, but like in the West, very few, right? I think Jordan.
I mean, that's just not true, right? Like, here in the U.S., we have a big thing, for sports athletes as role models and things like that, and working within the community and stuff, right? Um, you get young kids playing basketball and stuff like that. They're always going to look up to, like LeBron James, Giannis, Antetokounmpo. I probably butchered that, but yeah, they're role models and stuff around here, and I wouldn't expect, much like I wouldn't expect, um, oh, what's his name? Still great. Ian Miles Chung to understand a goddamn thing about America, not, ever coming to America and living halfway across the world in Malaysia. Same thing here with a Romanian who's never been to America, doesn't understand anything that goes on in Romania. It's like, oh yeah, there is no role models for people in the West, for men in the West. And what are you talking about?
Peterson, he made that book, right? Like the rules for life, and because a lot of people are freaking out about it, that's good, but you need to read it. Like that's the only good advice that I could think of. Something that basically says you need to first grow your self-esteem, make sure that you can support yourself so that you can support others. And
so those first two things are fine, but that's not the crux of Peterson's book. Like, if you just list the rules, they sound fine. They're not something terrible. If you want big breakdowns like this, Hannah and Jake on YouTube have done, I think the whole book now is out and done. And they just go over all the toxic, just things you would not give as good as advice. Yeah, the East and West divide. Yeah, he'd be, former he's older than me, so he would have been before the Iron Curtain fell, right? So he's probably what, mid-30s, mid-late 30s. So yeah, he would have been living under the USSR at one point. So he's not part of the West, even though he wants to claim it.
Then worry about changing the world. Literally all the advice that you get from everyone else is like, no. First you need to change the world. Like join some activist group, join some Antifa, and go on the streets during a pandemic and become a nuisance because you hate capitalism. Sponsored by Sony. So yeah, like I genuinely think like Jordan Peterson is one of the,
like, who's running? Like, is he talking about Black Lives Matter in there? I think that's what he's arguing about. we're not even we're 5 minutes, 5.5 minutes into this video. We're not even to the video he's critiquing. It's just an unhinged Romanian rant.
The best people that can give advice for men that need advice. Because most people don't need advice in life. Most people manage to sink or swim. But there are a couple that are genuinely in need of some encouragement or getting set on the right path. And honestly, like, I genuinely would be scared if I was a kid right now, and because I wouldn't know who would guide me besides my father. So, yeah, anyway, let's look at a couple of things which are toxic.
I mean, parents, you'll find all sorts of role models growing up. Now, some of them don't get them. But I'm going to bring this around to some baseball talk. There was an article, God, it's probably 6 years old now, done by Andrew McCutcheon. So, Pirates center fielder, and I forget where he's played since, but talking about why there's a lack of African American ball players in the major leagues now, even though there's been since like the late 80s a big push to in the cities with the RBI program and stuff like that to get African American youths into baseball and stuff. And he's talking about, well, in order to get notice, you have to play on these elite traveling teams, right? And I grew up poor, didn't have anything like that, and my parents just could not afford like the $300-400 a year to go drive me, 45 minutes out to go play baseball at this higher level so I could get noticed by everybody else and grow and make it up. And the only reason I made it to majors is that I had a little league traveling coach that basically I don't want to say adopted, but like took me in like his own kid and paid for everything to get me so I could go and play, right, with the talent and stuff I had. And within that, so he talks pretty say endearingly. Is that, I don't think it's correct word or anything with it, but a lot of praise is like a second father figure to him. And you'll see stories like this plenty with especially in the athletic circles. I know that pretty much because I was in athletics all my life and played college ball and stuff and did all this other stuff with athletics, so I'm used to that kind of story. That kind of story is pretty prevalent. Yeah, fondly, there you go, Godless Island. Yeah, but it's just something like there, like you can find all sorts of mentors and people to lead you on the right path and stuff, and they're not available to everybody, and they're not always there, right? Which I would argue justifies investments into these communities to help bring people up and let them get to where they want to get to in life.
Toxic masculinity, and apparently it happens everywhere where you look at it, right? So if it happens everywhere, that is normal. Like, what, something literally happens everywhere. Like, everywhere I look, people buy bread. So it's not a problem if people buy bread, right? Secondly, the problem that you're having is that these people that are making these hashtags and that are making this activism, they're not your parents. They're not your folks. You don't know these people. Why do you think they want what's best for you if these people wouldn't give you a single dollar if you were stuck in a ditch and you needed help, right? This is like, here's my life advice, okay?
What would $1 being stuck in a ditch do for anything like that, right? I assume like that's probably just a mix-up because English isn't his first language. On there, and he's just talking about someone being on the street and homeless and stuff like that. Is what he's trying to say. But he doesn't know that. I mean, that's just a claim that these people wouldn't provide charity or anything like that, hand it out. Yeah, slavery was everywhere and stuff like that. Yeah. And two, a lot of these people are speaking out for, some of their own experiences and stuff like that, right? If and this probably come up in the scripted video that's going to come out here next week that I'm working on covering the Transhood documentary. But make it okay for I'll go to me. There's a point in time, in the 60s, late 60s into the early 70s and stuff where men with long hair was frowned upon, right? I forget who did the original song, but the Signs that I know Tesla covered later in the 90s, just talk about being a long-haired hippie and stuff and wearing your hair long. It's some gender non-conforming thing that you couldn't do. That was incorrect. That was wrong. You couldn't do all that other stuff, right? Because that's not being manly, right? You look like a woman wearing your hair long, right? And that's pretty toxic idea of what a man is and what a man should be. And so through basically, a lot of the youth and just kind of the popularity of like rock and roll music and the hippie movement and all that other stuff, normalized guys wearing longer hair. And just because it's normalized, I thought it would be a little bit more normalized now than what it is, but even still, like, I've been from behind because the only thing I have that's different than it's gender non-conforming still would be long hair. Get misgendered for it. So it's still, even though we've done a lot of work to normalize it, there's still, when you get to the more rural and more small town areas and stuff, it's still not quite that accepted, right? And there should be nothing wrong with it, right? Wearing your hair however you want, expressing yourself in certain ways and stuff. And so what they're calling toxic masculinity is these ideas, these systems placed upon young boys and young men that hurt them because it's like, well, I can't live up to this standard of what a man should be, right? And it's like, well, you shouldn't have to live up to that. Be yourself, be happy, be the man that you want to be. And if you want to take it to women or trans folks, non-binary folk, be you. And that should be what it is. Should be happy. These standards shouldn't, these roles and expectations shouldn't be forced on you, right? If that's not who you are. That's what they're critiquing with toxic masculinity.
If a person wouldn't give you money if you are in desperate need, do not take advice from that person. Because they're not interested in helping you out. Just, like seriously, think about this. What type of person definitely cares about you? If you are starving, they wouldn't give you money for food, but they always tell you how to live your life. So we got this, men don't wear pink. So this is like the most dumb thing that I have seen because there's a lot of men that wear pink. Like every time I go on the street, I look around myself and there's a lot of men that wear pink shirts or some articles of clothing that are pink. I mean, the only thing is that it needs to look fashionable, right? Like it needs to suit the occasion. Here's the thing about clothes.
So again, this is more normalized now than what it was, right? Wearing pink and stuff like that. The picture here, we got guy. I think that's Harry's. Is that Harry Styles? I don't know. I don't know my teeny boppers. But it was a thing. I recognized it when it was still something said to us in when I was a kid growing up in middle school and stuff. You shouldn't wear pink and stuff like that. And then some of us were just like, basically, we flip it on our head and go, "No, real men wear pink." Right, and so we get pinkish style shirt and stuff like that. So there's still a lot of ideas that beyond just this what you'd class as feminine or women's clothing and stuff like that, and so men can't wear it and stuff. Like you're just beyond the color pink. Like he showed like the different pink shirts and stuff like that, but that was something that was said for a while, even though that's not something that's historically been the case, right? Like what was it that always comes up, the ads from the late 19th century, very early 20th century, where they're talking about boys wear pink and girls wear blue, right? And it just through ads, marketing and stuff, eventually they settled on, nope, the boys wear blue and girls wear pink, even though it was reversed at one point in time.
When you dress up, you project to the people around you a message. Okay, it's a non-verbal message, but it's a message nonetheless. If you don't believe me, try this experiment. Go out shopping dressed in a suit. But like I'm talking about an impeccable suit, like something that actually looks good on you. And go out shopping. Not only will it raise your confidence, but you will notice that the people around you start acting differently. Just because you're dressed in a suit, you're still the same person. And then go in the same place a week later and dress in some raggedy clothes, some, like clothes that you would normally not wear outside, but you keep them for indoors use. And you'll see that the same people are going to behave differently to you, because like this is what clothes are. They symbolize something. And you have no control over what the other people from around you are going to internalize from how you dress. But it's very important. So when you show me a guy that's dressed like this, you know, like having a cigarette in his mouth, and he's got like the glass in his hand, and he's got like the tattoos all over his body, and he's dressed in a tutu and whatnot. Like, this is a person that just wants to offend for the sake of it. Like, he is literally going out of his way in order to push boundaries. The question is, what do you accomplish by pushing boundaries? Do you gain anything? No, it's like that mentality of changing the world. You're not going to change the world. You know, you're going.
I mean, doing stuff like this, pushing boundaries and stuff, and what's acceptable for men and women, trans and non-binary people, does, right? Like, so you're not caged by what it is to be a man or what it is to be a woman or something like that, right? Like, so we have certain types that are a little more acceptable among women and stuff, like being a tomboy or something like that is more normalized nowadays. Like, so you wear your jeans, your t-shirt and stuff like that, and you can go run around, do all the same things that the guys are doing. Well, it's like, you know, I grew up in a farm country and stuff like that, so you go four-wheeling, you go mudding and stuff like that, and do all the things that the boys typically do, right? But something like this is still kind of frowned upon, you know, pretty heavily for men to do, right? Usually you get a lot of homophobia baked into it, a lot of F slurs and stuff like that. But yeah, doing this stuff is how you change it, right? Like long hair, right? Like I said, I talk about my one gender non-conforming thing is the long hair that I wear, right? That had to be changed by people, you know, that basically the hippies wearing their long hair all the time, right? And the different groups doing that and normalizing it more so that I could wear it and not be called like a woman or a sissy or a, you know, F slur and stuff like that for doing it.
You're going to get people just rolling their eyes off you. So, in other words, imagine if Donald Trump, the US president, would come up at the press conference dressed like this. Do you think, like, literally the same progressive people that were like, come on, there's nothing wrong with dressing like this, it's very progressive, very progressive. Do you think the same people would look at Donald Trump dressed like this and go like, I'm so glad that the president finally have the cut? They would laugh their ass off. They would laugh their ass off. There would be like the articles on CNN mocking and ridiculing and all of that, you know, from the same people that say, no, you should dress like this because it's progressive and it's very good.
So there's a difference between those things. Like, so there's like an established norm that you dress this way as a president. This is how you go and do stuff, and I'm fine with changing those norms and doing all those other things, right? Yeah, Trump is laughable no matter what he wears, but like in theory, I wouldn't be opposed to something like this being normalized as like an office work or do all that other stuff, right? I think some of the dress codes for that are very limiting and very I don't know if I want to say oppressive, but certainly things that we could open up, and it certainly impacts non-white people a lot too, right? Or trans people and stuff like that, with what's acceptable to wear coming into work, right? Even if you're, say, you know, non-binary, if you're not going to you know, transition become, say, you know, like myself or whatever. If I came in and I'm fine looking the way I am here, but you know what, I want to dress in, you know, the skirt and stuff like that, and just like, you know, what would be seen as a woman, and you know, be the same thing everywhere else here. I'm not transitioning anything here. I'm not doing any of that stuff. That'd be frowned upon and looked down upon, right? And said no to in that situation. I think, well, you know, that should change. So in theory, I wouldn't be opposed to this, but you know, if he just came out one day and put it on, largely Trump doing that would be to make a joke of stuff. Sorry, yell in the other room. I lost my train of thought. But yeah, I'd be fine with changing it up and what's acceptable to wear in those certain things. You know, in the meantime, the current standard is a certain way to look. Do that in connecting business, and would Trump showing up in a tutu to a or any president showing up in a tutu to not alliteration, which is the words over again, but show up to like a international meeting with a different, you know, prime minister or something like that, you know, they would look at that as, you know, you're mocking me, right? You're not taking me seriously by dressing like that. So that's where I could see criticism coming from, just like the standards as they are for professionalism is what they're arguing for, not necessarily that they can't wear this stuff.
This is why you shouldn't listen to these people. And I have another example that comes up. You know, men don't cry, and that's okay. Do you know who cried? Jordan Peterson. He actually cried. He cried at, I believe, an interview. And he cried because he pointed out how people keep harassing and attacking him on Twitter. The number of harassment that he got after crying intensified tenfold. And some...
All right, let's look this up. I don't remember this. Where bullies brought Jordan Peterson to tears. All right, so let's copy that over, and we'll look at that.
Some of the same...
Pull that up.
You were asking about courage earlier, you know. One of the things that I have watched quite frequently is the way that people respond to being mobbed on Twitter.
Yeah.
You know, now I've almost stopped looking at Twitter. It's been about 3 months that I've taken a Twitter hiatus, let's say. I still post, I don't even have my password anymore. I send what I want to post to a third party and they post it because it keeps me out of the...
An antiseptic distance.
That's right, exactly. And that's exactly the right way of thinking about it. You know, people, civilized people, and I mean that in civilized, socialized people, cannot tolerate being mobbed. Because,
no, they can't.
Because, and there's a reason for that. You see, you said, with regards to the British Columbia Human Rights Tribunal, you know, if there's 16 people on one side and one on the other, you might be thinking that the 16 people are right.
More or less.
Right. But then you think of the situation where you've said something on Twitter and, you know, 1,000 people mob you publicly. I mean, your first response, your first response is going to be to examine your own conscience and see how you transgressed. It's not really much different psychologically. I mean, it's lesser, I suppose, but it's not that much different than waking up one morning and coming to your door and finding a mob of your neighbors angrily aggregated on your lawn. You know, it's a terrible shock for people, and it really hurts them. You know, they're often, by all accounts, you know, damaged for lengthy periods of time by this, and their first impulse is to apologize, which is truly the wrong thing. Like the right thing to do. Well, the right thing to do is to understand that if you haven't done anything wrong, you don't apologize. Now that's very difficult. It's very difficult. And then to wait, because if you wait 2 weeks, people will come to your defense.
Yeah, they will.
But it takes the people who will come to your defense 2 weeks to get their act together, where it takes the activists who are unbelievably organized 15 seconds to mob you.
All right. So he does a good job of describing what Twitter harassment can do, and he doesn't believe here, but he has also said, I'll have to look this up. He has also said things that make it okay to go after people on Twitter too, right? Which I assume is most of the backlash he got. Let's see what we got. But I mean, yeah. But I mean, this is the stuff like, so what we could bring this into is a bit of some of his stuff on like women wearing makeup and stuff, and that being inappropriate in the workplace and stuff like that. Don't do it in kind of some of the harassment he is sent at people on there. He doesn't take his platform as like, oh well, I better not do that. I'm a huge platform on this certain thing here. I'm gonna send the mob after him by going after him, right? I should, maybe pull back and, not send my audience after him. Just basically how Twitter works. Like, you talk to anybody, if you got an audience that's active or whatever, following your tweets, they're gonna jump on people here and stuff too. But he's had no problem sending them after people in the past, right? So this kind of thing is like, well, you kind of get what reap what you sow, kind of. Yeah.
Same people that are encouraging this type of message, they attacked Jordan Peterson. Why did they do that? Because I firmly believe that this is why they want men to cry. Basically, it's like, show me weakness. Show me weakness so I can know where to attack you. Again, imagine if Donald Trump...
No, nobody attacked him for crying, right? As far as I could tell looking at the tweets and stuff here. I mean, we have to go back a year over to try to find it, but people just going after the guy for doing the same thing he's condemning and he's crying about, right? It's not people saying, oh, Jordan Peterson cried, so haha, let's make fun of him for crying, right? I'm sure there were some assholes like that, but no, this is just like, hey, just desserts, right?
Would go out on television crying because he lost the election? Do you think that the people who made this meme would be like, you know what? At least he has he's not a person that's suffering from toxic masculinity. At least he's a decent human being. No, they would mock, they would ridicule, they would laugh at him. Like, this is why men are told not to cry. It's because the world is a harsh place, filled with assholes and communists who will take advantage the moment they see any weakness. There is no compassion on the internet or on the mainstream.
Yes, remember, folks, men aren't supposed to cry because there's asshole communists out there, right? Like, this is the disingenuousness of his argument, right?
Media, there is no understanding. There is no, like, they will attack you viciously.
So let's think about this here. There's gonna be more context if people are gonna laugh at somebody who's crying about something, right? Like, and Veeh shouldn't talk because who remembers the screaming girl or screaming woman gif from when the Trump inauguration, right? That's still used constantly. The no, I'm making fun of that stuff here. Like, if you're crying over like, oh no, we lost the election, like, that's why are you crying about losing the election, right? That's not something you would cry about. But if your significant other leaves you and you're caught crying, you're upset about it still or whatever, nobody's gonna sit and laugh and mock somebody for that. Well, nobody that he's criticizing is gonna sit and laugh at him for losing a significant other, or somebody in the family dies, right? the only time where the laughing will happen, and Veeh shouldn't talk because Veeh, I'll have to dig it up through. It's buried in a Thunderfoot video because the original stream was taken down. But when Skeptic Feminists, that murder happened, Veeh was on Sargon's stream making some of the most heinous jokes about her death, right? About Heather's death. But you get, like where you would expect somebody to cry over being hurt, being things like that. You're not going to get people making fun of them. Like if somebody's crying about losing an election, right, is going to get laughed at by some people, right? Because what is there that, like, what deep hurt or loss that you had there? You just, you lost. You ran an election, you didn't win, you lost, right? Not something there to cry for. Where I'll make exceptions and stuff for it is if you get teared up, in different things, like some advanced competition that requires your thinking for. So like athletics and stuff, like football team played on in high school. When you lose in the playoffs and the end of your season or whatever, guys will have tears come down to their face because they put all their heart and soul into trying to win. They cared about winning. They pushed themselves so much here, and then they fell short, and they're kind of it's just like it hits you, and it's really emotional. And in those situations, yeah, cheer up about it, right? That's fine.
For them, it's entertainment. And there is a person in the comment section here which says, I cry all the time, but no one listens. And here's the thing, like babies cry. Adults need to show composure. Like, if you are the CEO of a company, and let's say because of you, a lot of people manage to have jobs and put food on the table, if things go rough and your employees see you crying because like, oh my god, the company is going to go bankrupt, is that going to raise or lower the morale in the company? Like, you don't want leaders, you don't want people in charge to start crying, because then you don't feel safe, then you don't feel secure, then you're starting to worry, your morale drops. And morale is going to just spread through the company, through the ranks. And by the way, I noticed that even women are being told not to cry now. It's not just men. Like I witnessed a mother, and it was yesterday, it was at shopping. I think like the girl was like, I don't know, 10 or 11, and the mother was telling her to stop crying because she's grown up now. And I was like, no, like even women should not cry. Now there are acceptable moments to cry. You're supposed to, it's acceptable to cry at a funeral. It's acceptable to cry during Titanic and Lion King, or The Walking Dead. Like the first season, The Game from Telltale. There are acceptable places. I've yet to see a single person saying you shouldn't cry at a funeral, and if that person would say something like that, they would be the asshole, right? But generally, there are things where it's acceptable. However, like just crying because things aren't going your way, or like just showing vulnerability to people that you don't know and they don't care about you, that's such a good idea. Because again, why are you crying? Because you're sad, right? So if you show people that you're vulnerable and then they attack you, aren't you hurting yourself? Like, aren't you doing more harm to yourself? Because you can't control the people. Like, Jordan Peterson cannot control the trolls that were mocking and attacking him because he had the audacity to cry. And then you have boys will be boys. And this is like something that really bothers me, right? Because apparently like Gillette wants to be Boomy and Daddy, like a corporation wants to educate people. Like boys will be boys, taught to be respectful and responsible for their actions. Right? So here's my question. On one hand, it's very popular to say that in defense of looting is a good thing. Like literal books that encourage people to criminal activity are being published. But like the saying boys will be boys, no, that's horrible. Look, when...
Yeah, because boys will be boys is often used when they're doing, things they shouldn't do, right? And I know he brings the looting and defense of looting stuff. Like, there are higher, moral system stuff that you can work through and make arguments or justifications for certain political actions and stuff like that, right? alluding in for, like when we talk about. Well, I'll hold off on that point and get back to the boys will be boys stuff, but usually it'll be the boy goes over and hits somebody, right? And it, either the other boy, maybe maybe a girl or something like that, they'll hit on them and they'll do things like that. And the excuse is, well, boys will be boys, not that, hey, don't go over and punch somebody, right? And it's used in all sorts of things where it's just like, no, let's look at this behavior that you're doing that we're just hand waving away and excusing with boys will be boys, and we'll deal with it, right? That's all they're saying here.
Billy comes home and he is covered in mud, and you find out that he had a stick fight. He was dueling with sticks with the neighbor, even though you told him he shouldn't. And the wife starts crying and she's panicking and she's like, oh my god, he doesn't listen to us anymore. What are we going to do, Veeh? What are we going to do, Veeh? He's going to join a gang. He's going to sell drugs and he's going to end up in prison. Oh, poor Billy. Then is when you tell the woman, it's like, look, calm down. Boys will be boys. We all been through that period. Rebellious teenage years in our life. That doesn't mean anything. It's like, just going to have a talk with him again, and it's like, calm down, right? It's not the end of the world. I've yet to hear like boys will be boys when you find out that your son has raped the neighbor's daughter. Okay? Like I have not heard this expression being used in such a situation, nor will I think I will ever have it heard. I don't even know like the type of parent, or even like show me the movie or the video game or the teacher that is going to say, yeah, you know what, like if you do criminal activity, that's fine. Perfectly fine. Boys will be boys. Boys are allowed to do it. You're a girl, Susan? You're not allowed to do it.
I mean, this is such a disingenuous argument he's making, right? So we don't even have to go as anywhere near rape for boys will be used, right? Like flipping a girl's skirt up or something like that, and doing those kind of things. We'll get a boys will be boys, and not say, hey, no, this is an invasion of a person's personal space that you shouldn't do. Things like that, and just like, flip their skirt up, or touch them where they don't want to be touched, and stuff like that as they're walking. You're not necessarily in a sexual context, like you slap a girl on the ass as you walk through. It's like, boys will be boys, right? It's like, no, don't do that. That's wrong. Don't. Right? Don't just brush it off, boys will be boys, because what would be argued is that kind of attitude and permissiveness towards that kind of behavior means that like the worst stuff that comes after that is going to happen. Be more likely to happen and stuff, right? And that's where it comes in. So the boys will be boys was used long before you ever get to rape, and that's assuming you don't have a situation where they try to pass it off like a how do I want to phrase this? It's not going to go real bad. Pause it up here, but so in a situation where you're drinking and stuff or whatever, right? And it's boys will be boys is used. Right, and you sleep with a girl, right? And the situation, as it's recalled or remembered, as it's talked about and stuff, there it'll look like, well, he was all over me, he was grabbing me, all this other stuff while we were drinking, pushed into doing something here I wasn't here, have to, and we had sex, because he was all pushy and on top of me and stuff, right? Boys will be boys can be used to explain that away, right? Even though that's you're really moving up towards sexual assault and rape right there. So where it's something like it's an unambiguous not that that's ambiguous, but like clear cut rape, you're probably not gonna get the boys will be boys and let the way here. But it's that stuff that falls into the less clear-cut situations where this phrase has become up to hand wave away something that could very easily be considered rape.
No, it's just like an expression to explain the fact that, yeah, like boys are going to tumble in the mud once in a while and their clothes are going to be dirtier. At least that's what I got when I was a kid. Like, that's what I understood. You know, boys like contact sports, like dodgeball. Most girls didn't want to play dodgeball. I don't know why. Maybe they needed feminism to teach them to play dodgeball. I don't have a clue. It's not because we wouldn't play with them. We definitely wanted to play with them, but they preferred to play with their dolls. It's like, okay, I don't like dolls. Maybe I needed feminism to teach me to like dolls more. But like that's what boys will be boys is. But for some reason, I don't know how it denaturated, or maybe like in America things are different. Like maybe in America, you know, like after dad reads the newspaper and it's like, oh look, this serial killer was finally apprehended today. Oh well, you know, boys will be boys. Like, is this happening? Is this for real? Like, is this genjutsu?
I mean, that's a disingenuous argument for what the way boys will be used to go run to some clear-cut thing that nobody would object to being upset about. Boys will be boys is used to dismiss all the other stuff where boys will be boys excuses a lot of bad behavior.
And then you have like men should never ask for help. Again, like I don't know like where exactly are they going to get help from. You know, you get it from this YouTube channel every once in a while, every once in a blue moon. And I'm always worried. It's like, oh my God, I might say something that is offensive and it might get me the platform because most people don't agree with me. And boys can never be scared. Like, again, like now they're just making stuff up. It's like boys, it's human to be scared. However, courage means that you are acting despite the fact that you are scared, which is a good lesson. You know, it's like if I'm out with my fiance and a dog jumps from behind the bushes and is charging, I'm going to be terrified. But you know what? I'm going to be positioning myself between myself and the fiance. Why? Because I suffer from benevolent sexism. I don't want my fiance to get harmed. You know, like I hope she runs away while I try to tackle the dog. Hopefully I'll make it. But you know what? Like this is like my instinct. This is how I feel that I should behave. Apparently it's not okay, huh? But like, no, like the idea isn't that I've never ever heard anyone giving me the advice of don't be scared. Like the advice is on the contrary. It's like, no, I understand you're scared. It's normal to be scared, but you need to do the thing that needs to be done. You know, like the firefighter is probably scared when he goes into the burning building. The doctors that were fighting COVID are scared, but they do it anyway. So I don't know where they picked up like these last two things. Because I've never heard them being said, you know, like.
So, you know, pull yourself up by your bootstraps kind of thing, right? You got to do it yourself. Our kind of attitudes put in. While I tackle the dog, yeah, tackle the dog, right? He's gonna go do that stuff. But it's never ask for help. There's a lot of push that you got to do things on your own as a guy, right? And it's like, no, go if you need some help with something, ask, right? It's kind of laid on us to, you know, do the things without the help. So you got to handle your own business by yourself because everybody else has got their own shit to deal with, right? So you don't ask for help. That's kind of where some of the attitude is. The don't be scared stuff is, you know, and literally for like the things he's talking about, oh, I don't hear people say that stuff there. It's like, yeah, these things have changed, and although they haven't changed, completely, you know, some of these things still exist. They have been changing as people have been talking about these issues, right? And you know, it's like, you know, one of the things that is taught young and socialized young is if you go into any situation where you should be scared, you know, where it's reasonable to be scared and stuff like that, you get called a pussy, right, by the other boys, right? Just try to reinforce is like, oh, you're scared, you're a pussy, right? Like, this is an attitude that we get socialized with quite frequently growing up.
Like, men should never ask for help, or men shouldn't be scared. Like, this is just, I guess, like them running out of witty quotes. So they're now having to make stuff up that has no connection to genjutsu.
I don't know what genjutsu means. Is that some trolling meme I should be scared about uploading? But no, I mean, it's not stuff that's made up. That does that one. That took a lot longer than I thought it was gonna, but